This week on the Nonprofit News Feed, my name is George Weiner. I am the chief whaler of Whole Whale, a B Corp digital agency focused on analytics and advertising for nonprofits. And we've got Nick Azulay, digital strategist over at Whole Whale. We're huge nonprofit geeks and just sort of love talking about the news and happen to record it. And that's how we have this news podcast. How's it going, Nick?
It's going great, George. Good to see you as always. We want to start us off, George, because we have kind of a crazy just a crazy story. So last week, George, the Doge subcommittee, which are words I am so sad I have to say, led by the one and only Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, held a hearing titled Public Funds, Private Agendas, NGOs Gone Wild, which featured witnesses from various anti-immigrant hate groups and other climate denial organizations who accuse nonprofits of being agents of the far left. George, the National Council of Nonprofits CEO Diane Yentl was the sole Democratic witness standing up for basically all of American civil society as the committee basically just bashed NGOs and American nonprofits into the ground. And George, this comes as we are increasingly tracking federal crackdowns on community organizing and civil society. Of course, threats to Harvard, threats to other NGOs, threats to remove tax-exempt statuses or weaponize tax codes. So this committee, George, this committee hearing rather was just additional fuel on the fire.
Yeah. Diane Yentl, president, CEO of National Council of Nonprofits. It's a tall order to be standing up for the over 1 million nonprofits out there. But like, she's been posting on LinkedIn about her experience, and just a quote directly from her post following that moment: in the 24 hours after I testified before Congress on the vital work of nonprofit organizations, Congressman Brandon Gill tweeted about me 10 times, each time unleashing a wave of threats and hate, which seems to be the goal. Went on Fox last night to call me a radical left activist with a deep history of saying vile, despicable things. Laura Ingraham called me a run-of-the-mill lunatic. All the while, they continue to bash nonprofits with egregious, wildly inaccurate smears and lies. Like, to be clear, there's a real cost to what Diane is doing, right? Like, she is personally being attacked. That's not normal. That's not okay, right? These people with very large platforms are now dog whistling, mentioning, and bringing this type of focused hatred on a leader in our community. Look, I think it's easy to be brave when there's nothing at stake, and Diane is showing us what bravery actually looks like in this moment, and I'm incredibly impressed.
Yeah, absolutely, George. Just straight up bravery. Also, just having to control your emotions and take the most insane, unhinged questions from some of these characters is a test of any good human's will. So, shout out to her.
She must have kids. I don't know how you train for something like that.
No, there's no. Oh, all right. Let's take us into our next story, George. And we want to shift things up a little bit because we have an exciting announcement from the folks over at Google. And this announcement is that Google for Nonprofits, George, is expanding to 100 new countries and territories. They are going to offer the full workspace for nonprofits, which includes new AI features, as well as steep discounts for nonprofits using a whole host of Google services and workstations, most notably including Notebook LM, Gemini's Deep Research, and other organizational enterprise type AI tools that can be used by these organizations. Additionally, ad grants are going to now be extended to Google Maps with placements powered by AI Performance Max campaigns. George, I think that this is such a cool development because so many local community nonprofits that run fundraising drives or recruit volunteers locally can now advertise via Google Maps, which is an app, quite frankly, how many of us use every single day. So this is a really exciting development, and shout out to Google at a time when other tech companies are maybe pulling back on their cooperation with nonprofits. Google.
Yeah, put a pin in that for a second. Just to double click, ad grants can now run on eligible Google Maps placements. This is epic. Like, over 20 years, ad grants has been a phenomenal, possibly the most valuable in-kind donation in history of any corporation for the like over 14 billion visits to nonprofit websites with that 10K a month, 120K a year given to eligible nonprofits. That is an incredible amount. But now that you can target maps, like this is really exciting for certain organizations that do regional targeting for awareness, for location-based services in your communities. The opportunities here are pretty phenomenal. And also, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about the evolution of AI overviews, how that relates to, frankly, search inventory, and watching how the grant will respond. And it seems like this is a step toward expansion, which really it gets me excited. And I think the other piece is realizing that the information as a service, right? Information on demand, but intelligence on demand is now something that they see as something that should be given to nonprofits at steep or free discounts so that they can do their work. It is critical to doing good work. And giving that is a really big signal. Conversely, another signal being sent by the second largest company in the world, Microsoft, is that they are canceling this type of software grant support for local applications that run on desktop, as well as things like Defender security for about 400,000 nonprofits. They gave 45 days notice in that. And they are essentially in a period of time when we need to be, as nonprofit leaders and frankly, the tech admin of those, integrating AI, figuring out the costs and adoption. There's a step back happening, being like, the fundamental, like you need to download a Word doc in a local region that doesn't have reliable Wi-Fi. You have to go backward in time and deal with this problem, pay for it, or at least spend a ton of retraining to find a new solution. And as you retrain, I think this is a huge nod toward why you'd want to move to Google for nonprofits. It would be a lift, but I trust this company's behavior over the past decade and how they're treating this moment and meeting it with support for like 100 more countries getting access to this. This is awesome. I really, I was impressed by this announcement.
Yeah, George. No, this is super exciting to see. All right, and I can take us into our next one, George. And this is, in some ways, a follow-up to the story at the top of the show. But I saw this story and it caught my eye. And that is to say that the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, and dozens of other US nonprofits, as reported by Semaphore, are creating UK legal entities as a precautionary measure against potential Trump administration executive orders that could seek to strip tax-exempt status from organizations like Greenpeace, working in the environmental advocacy space, media freedom, and other international development organizations. The Committee to Protect Journalists, I think their offices were actually in Brooklyn. So this is a real important NGO that is actively considering a contingency event in case they need to entirely pick up and move to a different country because the United States is too authoritarian to protect journalists. Apparently, one London law firm, which typically does about one of these cases every 3 months, got 12 such cases in just a couple of weeks, as NGOs are increasingly trying to build kind of a legal backstop in the event that they lose their status or are otherwise attacked in the United States and have to leave the country. George, I want to just pause and say that when we talk about attacks on civil society, Donald Trump is following to a T other authoritarians around the world. This is exactly what Viktor Orban did. Viktor Orban demagogued a nonprofit university in Budapest, in Hungary, that was predominantly founded and funded by George Soros. He demagogued it as a university, an elite, far-left, globalist, international university, a nonprofit. He kicked that entire university out of the country. They had to pick up and leave. And now it looks like American nonprofits are thinking about potentially preparing for the same thing.
Yeah, when American nonprofits are literally fleeing this country like political refugees, you gotta feel like there's a line being crossed. The organization's not moving to like avoid taxes. They're moving to avoid persecution in another country. Like The fact that like protecting journalists, providing humanitarian aid is now considered politically dangerous, I think can stand on its own in terms of what we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely, George. Definitely agree.
Ugh.
All right. I think we're both after that. We need to feel good.
Yikes.
This one comes from a radio station, WDET in Michigan. George, there is a nonprofit called Relief who has started a 2-year contest to challenge Michigan citizens, Michiganders, to find, to find Michigan's biggest trees across 5 categories. A giant scavenger hunt aiming to connect people with nature and tree conservation while seeking new state and national champion trees. How cool would that be to have a champion tree in your backyard? The competitions received submissions from 70 of Michigan's 83 counties, and entries only require a tree's circumference at chest height. And you have until August 22nd to find Michigan's largest tree.
Wow, go hug those trees. And just a pro tip, I don't recommend having an open competition to name said tree because you're going to end up with Bodie McBoatface tree. That's a deep cut internet joke.
That's a deep cut for us millennials. All right, George, I'll take us to our joke. And I got a good one for you. George, what do you call a person who tells dad jokes but isn't a dad? A faux pas. That's good, right?
That was good.
That was good. George, do you know who wrote that joke?
AI?
Your mother. She sent it to me in an email.
It's like your mother. Oh, well, happy Father's Day to everyone out there, self included. You're doing great work. Keep it up, everyone. Hi, Mom.
Happy Father's Day. All right. Take care. I'll see you later, George.